Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And on today's episode, we're talking about how melting ice in the Rocky Mountains uncovered the remains of a 5,900-year-old forest in Wyoming. Which is kind of interesting because what had ended up eroding out of the ice here is 30 dead whitebark pine trees that were entombed in the ice for over a millennia, which is fascinating, and it's something that I think is very important for us to talk about. And I know we've talked about it briefly in other episodes, but with the changing in our environment, without using too many buzzwords, there has been a stark change in the way that ice has been formulated, and we're starting to see a lot of things erode out of the ice. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, we did an episode about a cart that had basically eroded out of a glacier in the Swiss Alps.
Yep. The ice is melting, and history is re-revealing itself to us. And this is actually not even the first time where ancient trees have been revealed from the ice to us in America. I believe in what is it, Wyoming? Uh, yeah, the Beartooth Plateau had another hidden strand found some years prior to this that came up out of the ice of just, these dead frozen trees. And it's like this is a thing that happens, that when it does happen, it's always really fascinating because trees are like the number one source of information for a lot of climate what's the word, data.
And it's just
They are amazing for it.
it's very fascinating because the ice really keeps a perfect time capsule of these items and of this history, and it's something that is starting to reveal itself and that we have to be prepared to act on, because one of the only reasons some of these things have survived for so long is because they're in an anaerobic environment within the ice. They're in an environment that does not promote bacterial growth, that does not allow these items to break apart.
Yeah.
So, we're starting to see this, and tied to the same article was a Colorado University professor, Craig Lee, discovered a 10,000-year-old hunting weapon that he had come across during investigations over a decade ago, actually, which is really impressive. He had found what is called an atlatl, which is a device that you use to fling spears
Yeah.
and
It's
projectiles.
yeah. Basically, it's a stick about the length of your forearm that you're able to rest another stick off of and sort of hook onto the back with it, imagine like a little rod with a fish hook on it.
And the one
You-
that he located looks like it could have just blown off a branch in a storm, but it actually served a purpose and,
Yeah.
has things attached to it. But it's very, very fascinating, and they went to do more additional research, and that was over a decade ago. This continued even further. And
Yeah.
what's very
Oh,
fascinating about this specific example is it's located 10,000 feet above the sea level, which
yeah.
is higher than the current tree line.
Yeah. And that's what's really cool is this is 590 feet above the current tree line. And what the tree line what it's called a timber line when it's up here. What that is the elevation at which the environmental conditions become so harsh and so deadly that the environment can no longer support trees. Trees cannot live there. And so what this tells us by all these 30 trees here, this little grove of trees, is that 5,000 years ago, trees could live 600 feet further up the mountains.
And it's fascinating too in a lot of ways, because one of the ways they're able to check the paleoclimatology of this, where they do ice core samples where they dig very deep into the ice, and they're able to tell what the environment was and what it would have supported. And this was during the mid Holocene period, so just at realistically about 5,000 years after the last terminal Pleistocene, which is the ice age that we think of.
Yeah.
And this was a period where elevated temperatures had really proliferated, seeing the trees be able to grow so high. But then we started seeing a sharp downtick in global temperatures, which saw the ice expand and envelop
Yeah,
this area. And that's one of the things that they highlighted is how quickly these trees were enveloped by the ice to be perfectly preserved in a
yeah,
grove.
yeah. Basically, what happened at this point in the Holocene was there was a lot of volcanic activity in the Rocky Mountains, and that activity caused a temperature drop, which allowed the ice to just push downward very far. Because everyone thinks volcanoes, oh, lava heat. No, the ash cloud from those things is an absolute killer. And so these volcanoes caused the temperature to drop drastically, which brought the ice down in a very short span of short period of time, and just it ate the trees. Because that's what's really amazing about this. These 30 trees are actual wooden trees. They are not petrified trees. This is not a tree that died, created a hole in some mud flat that then got filled in by harder stone and compressed into the image of a tree. This is not petrification. This is actual wood. This is this is 5,000-year-old lumber.
And it's just interesting too because the white bark pine trees can live for hundreds of years and sometimes up to 1,000, nowhere near 5,000. But it also is one of the items and things that could provide food to the local fauna. You know, red squirrels, grizzly bears, they're able to eat the pine cones and survive off of them. However, one of the downsides to this is that pine, the white bark pine, is a threatened species under the Endangered Species Act, which is a federal law protecting species that are in threat of going extinct. And this is specifically due to the mountain pine beetle and the white pine blister rust. So there's a pest and a fungus that are crippling this species.
Yeah, yeah, and it is and it is it is very dangerous. And the what to make matters worse, well, the pine beetle is a species indigenous to North America. It's meant to be there. It is one of the animals that sustains itself off of these trees. The blister rust, this fungus, it's an invasive species, and it is what has pushed is one of the things that's pushed these trees into a declining population instead of that balance between beetle and tree that it used to have.
Yeah, but I think that's probably a good point for us to end off. I figured this would be an interesting one for us to talk about just because we do start seeing things eroding out of the ice that have a lot of educational value that we could learn a lot of. And this gives us a great insight into what the climate of this region looked like at this period. And it's just fascinating, but it's a race against the clock that we are not fully prepared for. I don't think we're quite ready to handle dealing with so much, but
Yeah.
that's the future, and that's something we're going to have to adapt and be more resilient to. But I think that's a great point for us to wrap up. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, let us know down below, and we will see you in the next episode. Peace.